The royal banquet was still raging behind me when I slipped onto the observation deck, away from the suffocating sea of velvet robes, crystalline goblets, and ceremonial speeches about the enduring friendship between our worlds. I leaned against the transparent wall of the station, staring at the black ocean of space speckled with starlight. My reflection looked as tired as I felt. A man in an ill-fitting diplomatic suit, hair sticking up like I'd tried to wrestle an iron storm and lost. I sighed, the kind of sigh that could power a small wind turbine, and whispered, "If only I had the chance to marry you." I meant the stars. Well, okay, I meant her too, Princess Liara, the galaxy's most dazzling royal, who happened to be inside charming every dignitary in the room. Not that she knew my name. I was just the assistant to the ambassador of Earth, a glorified errand boy whose job included fetching data slates, keeping the ambassador's coffee warm, and occasionally pretending I understood alien table etiquette. I didn't expect anyone to hear my whisper except maybe the station's cleaning bots, but then I heard a voice, soft and musical, as if the stars themselves had decided to answer. Yes. I froze. My brain did a quick diagnostic check. Had I fallen asleep? Was I hallucinating from too many samples of alien appetizers? But no, she was standing right behind me, Liara herself. She wore a gown that shimmered like a nebula in motion, and her long, delicate ears glowed faintly in the dim light. It was impossible not to notice her ears. They curved elegantly, like silvered crescent moons, twitching slightly as though they were picking up radio signals from my terrified heartbeat. "Yes," I croaked. "Yes, as in yes." "You asked me," she said with a smile that probably could have started wars or ended them, "if I would marry you." "Oh no. No, no, no," I said, hands flailing like malfunctioning drone propellers. "That was just me talking to myself. I wasn't asking you. I was, just practicing my whispering for whisper emergencies, very common on Earth." Her eyes, two brilliant emeralds, sparkled with amusement. "Humans whisper proposals to the stars often. Only when they're sleep-deprived or allergic to royal banquets," I muttered. "Which I am, both." She tilted her head, and her long hair, strands of silver light, fell over her shoulder. "On my planet, a whispered confession is the purest form of truth. To whisper is to reveal the heart." I swallowed. "On my planet, whispering is usually what you do when you're hiding snacks from your coworkers." Her laughter was so sudden and melodic that I forgot I was in trouble. She laughed like someone who didn't get enough chances to laugh, and I, a humble Earth idiot, had somehow made her smile. That should have been my cue to shut up, bow respectfully, and leave. Instead, I kept talking. "To be fair, Your Highness, marrying me would be a terrible idea. I'm not even good at assembling flat-pack furniture. Galactic politics would eat me alive." She stepped closer. I could see tiny constellations etched into her skin, faint bioluminescent markings running along her collarbone, glowing faintly like soft starlight. "Perhaps I don't want politics," she said. "Perhaps I want something unpredictable." Oh great, I thought. I was unpredictable, like an unsupervised toddler with a plasma torch. Behind us, the sound of a trumpet blast echoed through the observation deck, a signal that the formal toast was about to begin. If the ambassador noticed I was missing, I'd be demoted to guy who refills the ship's soap dispensers. "You should return to your banquet," I said nervously, trying to regain control of reality. "People are probably waiting for you to give a speech about trade routes or cosmic peace treaties or whatever royals talk about." "Let them wait," she replied, folding her arms. Her gown shifted like a living galaxy. "Tell me, do all humans propose marriage so casually? Do you whisper these things to every princess you meet?" "Every single one," I said, then quickly added, "which is none. I don't meet princesses, I meet vending machines and tax forms." Liara smiled wider. "You are strange." "That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me," I said. Then, realizing I'd just complimented her insult, I backpedaled. "I mean thank you, I think." She took a slow step closer, and my brain promptly short-circuited. I had never been this close to her before. I'd seen her from afar during formal receptions, always surrounded by towering guards and diplomats, like a star surrounded by its protective atmosphere. Up close, she seemed real. Not just the untouchable royal everyone whispered about, but a woman with curiosity in her eyes and a teasing tilt to her lips. "Maybe," she said softly, "your whisper was the only honest thing spoken in this entire station tonight." I couldn't tell if my heart was melting or spontaneously combusting. "Maybe," I replied, equally soft. "But if you tell anyone I said that, I'll deny it and blame the station's ventilation system." Liara laughed again, this time leaning slightly closer, as if sharing a secret. "You amuse me, human. I think I will consider your proposal." "What proposal?" "No proposal, it was a whisper. A whisper doesn't count." I was flailing again. "I'm not— Wait, did you say consider?" Her smile turned mischievous. Perhaps I already said yes. I was fairly certain my soul left my body for a moment. The words, "you said yes," echoed in my head like an alarm. Princess Liara, with all due respect, that would cause, I don't know, intergalactic scandal, wars, my mom asking a lot of weird questions. "Then it will be fun," she said simply, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her life. And before I could argue, she turned gracefully and headed back toward the banquet, her silver hair trailing like a comet's tail. I stood frozen, mouth open, brain fried. I didn't know if I had just gotten engaged, fired, or both. By the time I re-entered the banquet hall, my pulse still hadn't returned to anything resembling a normal human rhythm. It didn't help that the hall looked like it had been designed by someone who thought less is more, was a personal insult. Holographic banners of every color streamed through the air, and mechanical doves, yes, doves, but made of polished chrome, circled above us, scattering tiny bursts of glitter like aggressive wedding confetti. If I hadn't just accidentally proposed to an alien princess, I might have stopped to enjoy the free show. Instead, I was stuck replaying her voice in my head. Yes, she had actually said yes. I was pretty sure the Interstellar Alliance didn't have a protocol for assistant accidentally proposes to royal heir. I imagined the ambassador's face when he found out. He'd probably faint, and then wake up just long enough to fire me and have me ejected through the nearest airlock. "Where have you been?" hissed Ambassador Crane as soon as he spotted me. His hair, which was already a fragile diplomatic structure held together with gel and hope, seemed about 5 seconds away from collapse. "Do you know how many speeches I've endured alone while you were off wherever you were?" "Speech fatigue is a serious condition, sir," I muttered. He glared. "Don't start with your jokes, Kai. We're surrounded by intergalactic royalty, galactic trade officials." And he paused mid-scold as Princess Liara swept back into the room, her long ears catching the soft light. "Ah, there's our guest of honor." Guest of honor, fiancé of doom. Same thing, really. Liara's gaze swept over the crowd like a queen surveying her chessboard. When her eyes found me, she smiled, not the polite, royal kind of smile, but the kind that said, "Yes, I'm going to keep making this complicated for you." My stomach dropped through the floor and probably kept going until it reached the station's gravity core. She approached, graceful as a comet gliding through space. The room parted around her, nobles and diplomats bowing slightly as she passed. My first instinct was to hide behind a table, but unfortunately, the table was covered in glowing dishes, and I didn't want to cause an interspecies food incident. Last time I touched alien food without asking, I accidentally started a ceremonial mating dance. Long story. "Kai," she said, her voice carrying effortlessly despite the hum of conversation. "We have not finished our conversation." My knees went weak. "Oh, that's okay. Conversations are overrated. We can finish never." Ambassador Crane blinked at me as though I'd suddenly started speaking in a language only raccoons understand. "What conversation?" Liara tilted her head, and the bioluminescent markings on her skin brightened. Your assistant has offered me a proposal. The ambassador's drink froze midair. Then he choked, sputtered, and whispered, "You what?" "It's a misunderstanding," I blurted. "A whisper misunderstanding. I do that sometimes, it's cultural." Liara raised a delicate eyebrow. "In my culture, misunderstandings are binding if they are spoken to the stars." "Great," I muttered. "We're doomed by cosmic acoustics." The ambassador looked like he might actually faint. "Kai, you cannot. This is intergalactic suicide." "It's worse than suicide," I whispered back. "It's marriage." Liara leaned closer, clearly enjoying my panic. "Do all humans react to love with terror, or is it just you?" "Just me," I said, then corrected myself. "Actually, no, it's everyone. Terrifying species, humans. We scream when toast pops up." She chuckled, the sound like silver bells echoing in a vacuum. "I find you interesting." "Dangerously interesting," muttered Crane, who was now dabbing sweat from his forehead with a napkin made of actual starlight fabric. "Princess, surely you don't mean—" "I do," Liara interrupted smoothly. "He is amusing, and I have had enough of dull suitors who speak in riddles about trade percentages. Your assistant is refreshing." "Refreshing." That was a nice way of saying a clueless disaster who can't shut up. I swallowed, trying to find my voice. "Look, Your Highness, I'm flattered, really. I am, but I'm just a guy who once burned instant noodles because I forgot they need water. I am not fiancé material." "Then you will learn," she said, as if this were the most logical solution in the universe. The hall's holographic lights dimmed as the royal announcer floated to the center of the room. He looked like a cross between a parrot and a hover drone, his feathers flickering with data streams. "Attention, esteemed beings. Princess Liara will now speak." Oh no, oh no, no, no. My stomach did a triple somersault. Liara stepped forward, but before she began, she glanced back at me with a look that screamed trouble. "I will speak of new beginnings," she said, her voice carrying like a melody through the hall. "Of unexpected bonds. Tonight I have accepted something rare, a human heart." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Or in this case, a quantum coin. My brain screamed she didn't just say that. My mouth, however, muttered out loud, "Oh no." "She did." Crane's head whipped toward me. "What did you do?" "Breath existed, I don't know." Liara raised her glass. "To alliances and to unpredictable love." The entire hall erupted in polite applause. Somewhere in the back, a guard muttered something that sounded like "earless suitor." I was pretty sure that was my new nickname. As the applause faded, Liara returned to me, eyes gleaming. "You will visit me in the royal gardens tomorrow," she said, like an order. "We must discuss our future." "I don't even know what I'm eating for breakfast tomorrow," I stammered. "Our future seems a little advanced." "Then it will be exciting," she said, flashing a smile that could have melted ice caps. And just like that, she vanished back into the crowd, leaving me with nothing but the sound of my career collapsing. Ambassador Crane grabbed my arm. "Kai, do you realize what you've just done?" "Yeah," I muttered. "I think I just got engaged to a space princess and possibly triggered a galactic scandal." Crane groaned. "You couldn't just refill my coffee, could you?" "I'm sorry," I said. "Next time I'll stick to coffee." But deep down, a tiny, rebellious part of me couldn't help smiling. I woke the next morning to the sound of my personal comm buzzing like an angry hornet. The ambassador's voice came through with all the warmth of a malfunctioning airlock. "Kai, gardens, now, and for the love of every star in the galaxy, try not to propose to anyone else." "Good morning to you too," I groaned, pulling myself out of the bunk. My reflection in the mirror looked like it had lost a fight with a space vacuum cleaner. "Don't panic," I told myself. "It's just breakfast with a princess who accidentally thinks you're her fiancé. Totally normal Tuesday." The royal gardens were nothing like I expected. I'd pictured plants, maybe some fancy alien bonsai trees. Instead, I stepped into a zero-gravity dome where glowing orbs of water floated like tiny moons, and vines with crystal-like leaves coiled through the air, reaching lazily for anything that moved. One vine tried to shake my hand. I shook back. I'm polite like that. Liara was waiting in the center of it all, perched on what looked like a giant floating lily pad. She looked serene, as though this was just another casual day where she confirmed engagement rumors with random humans. "You came," she said, her long ears twitching slightly. "I considered faking an interstellar flu," I admitted, "but I figured your guards would still find me." "They would," she said, with a smile that was entirely too pleased with itself. "Come sit." I floated awkwardly toward her, immediately colliding with a bubble of glowing water. It splashed across my face and made me smell like alien lavender. Liara laughed softly, and I muttered something about how Earth's gravity was clearly superior. "You are tense," she said. "Relax, I do not bite." "I believe you," I said. "It's the plants I'm worried about. That one over there is staring at me." Liara followed my gaze and smiled. "That is no plant, that is an advisor." Sure enough, what I'd assumed was a large, leafy shrub turned its head and bowed. I nearly choked on my own disbelief. "An advisor? You have a shrub advisor?" "Bushari is one of my wisest counselors," she said, utterly serious. "He's quiet but insightful." I stared at Bushari, who was now very slowly nodding at me. "Of course he is," I said, nodding back. "Why wouldn't he be? That makes total sense. Everything about my life is perfectly normal right now." Liara's laugh rang out again, echoing through the dome. "You amuse me, Kai. You are unlike anyone I have ever met." "Yeah, that's because most people you meet probably know how to stand near you without accidentally proposing." She tilted her head, considering me. "Why do humans fear love so much? Do you think it weakens you?" "No," I said. We have a lot of reality shows dedicated to how marriage can go wrong. It traumatizes us." Liara blinked, then smiled. "Perhaps your people need better examples." "Or better shows," I muttered. Before I could embarrass myself further, a royal guard appeared at the edge of the dome. He was a mountain of metal and muscle, with armor that hummed faintly like an angry beehive. "Your Highness," he said, glaring at me with all the warmth of a frozen asteroid, "the council requests your presence." "Tell them I am occupied," Liara said without looking away from me. Her tone carried such effortless authority that the guard hesitated. Then, with a bow, he left. "Occupied," I said. "What exactly are we doing?" "Because as far as I can tell, I'm sitting here trying not to die of embarrassment." "We are bonding," she said. "It is a tradition among my people. You must prove your heart is genuine." "Oh, well, that's easy," I said with a nervous laugh. "I'm full of heart, 90% heart, 10% snacks." She raised an eyebrow. "Then we will test it." Before I could ask what that meant, she clapped her hands, and the vines in the garden began to move. They twisted together, forming a strange, floating structure in the air, something that looked like a puzzle but alive. A glowing sphere pulsed at its center. "This is the heart trial," she said. "Heart trial." "Oh, good. I was worried this was going to be a normal day." She smiled at my sarcasm. "You must solve it." "What happens if I do?" She tilted her head, her long ears glowing faintly. "The vines will hold you here for a long time." "Great," I muttered, eyeing the vines. "Do I at least get a hint?" "No," she said, "but I will watch. That is better than a hint, yes." I sighed and reached toward the puzzle. The vines reacted, wriggling like they were alive, which of course they were. "If I survive this," I muttered, "I'm asking for hazard pay." Liara chuckled, clearly entertained. "Your humor is a shield," she said. "But perhaps beneath it," she smiled, a glint of amusement in her eyes. "Then prepare yourself." The vines shifted again, and I realized this wasn't just a puzzle. It was reading me somehow, adjusting with every motion I made. "Oh," I muttered. "This is going to be a long day." I spent what felt like 3 eternities wrestling with the glowing, vine-based death puzzle that Liara had so casually introduced as the heart trial. By the end, I was sweating like someone who had been accused of smuggling forbidden snacks across a galactic border. Every time I thought I was close to solving it, the vines would twist into a new shape, as if mocking me. At one point, I swear I heard one of them chuckle. Yes, chuckle. Plants should not be allowed to laugh. Finally, after what felt like my entire lifespan had been dedicated to proving my worth, the central sphere pulsed once and dissolved into tiny sparks of light. Liara clapped softly. "You solved it," she said with a note of satisfaction. "I didn't solve it," I muttered, bending over with my hands on my knees. "I just guessed until the plants got bored of me. I think they let me win out of pity." "They like you," she said with a small smile. "That is surprising." "Surprising because you expected them to eat me," I asked, wiping my forehead. "Because I was kind of expecting that too." She laughed, the sound soft and melodic. "You are not what I expected in a suitor." "I'm not what I expected in a suitor either," I said. "Usually, I aim for someone who doesn't come with a trial involving sentient shrubbery." Before she could respond, a low, humming alarm filled the garden dome. I froze. "Please tell me that's just the dinner bell." Liara's expression hardened. "It is the Royal Council. They are summoning me. It is not a request." "Are they the same council that's going to have me vaporized if they find out about this whole fiancé misunderstanding?" I asked, because I would like to avoid being vaporized today. "You worry too much," she said, standing gracefully. "Come with me." I blinked. "Wait, I'm going with you. Into a room full of powerful alien leaders who already think I'm an accidental homewrecker. Fantastic idea." She tilted her head, her long ears glowing faintly. "If they meet you, they will see what I see. That I'm a disaster. That you are different," she said, smiling faintly. "Different is not always bad." I wasn't convinced, but I followed her anyway. The council chamber was a circular room with a floor of semi-transparent glass, revealing the void of space beneath. It was the kind of place where one wrong step would make you very aware of your fear of heights, even if you'd never had one. Floating seats formed a circle, and in them sat the Royal Council, a mix of towering beings with jeweled armor, shimmering robes, and in one case, what looked like a robotic jellyfish. All of them stared at me like I'd just tracked mud across their favorite space carpet. Liara raised a hand. "Honored Council, I bring before you my chosen companion." There was silence. Then one counselor, a tall, spindly being with skin like molten silver, tilted their head. "This is a human." "Yes," Liara said simply. "This is the earless suitor," another counselor asked, voice dripping with disbelief. "Hey," I said, pointing at my very functional human ears. "I have ears. They're just smaller, more aerodynamic." The room remained silent for a long moment. Then the jellyfish-like counselor emitted a sound that might have been a laugh or possibly the death rattle of a toaster. I took it as a good sign. "You cannot be serious," the silver-skinned counselor said to Liara. "This creature is unworthy. He is soft." "Soft is not always bad either," I muttered under my breath. Liara, ignoring the comment, stood tall. "I am serious. He is mine." There was a collective gasp, as if she just announced she was abandoning royalty to open a bakery. One of the guards actually dropped his ceremonial spear. I considered using the distraction to sneak out of the room, but Liara's hand found my arm, holding me in place. I wasn't sure if it was a reassuring gesture or a subtle warning not to run. The council began arguing amongst themselves in a flurry of different languages. I caught snippets. Tradition. Unthinkable. Does this human even know how to wield a plasma blade? I quietly answered that last one with a shake of my head. I once burned myself on a microwave. After a few tense minutes, the High Chancellor of the Council, a being so ancient he looked like he might collapse into stardust at any moment, raised a hand. The room fell silent. "If Princess Liara insists on this path," he said, voice like grinding metal, "then the human must prove his worth." "Oh no," I whispered. "I hate where this is going." The Chancellor's gaze turned on me. "You will complete the trial of unity." I groaned. "Let me guess, more plants." "Worse," Liara said with a mischievous smile. "This one involves flight." "Flight as in space flight?" I asked. "I'm not exactly licensed to operate interstellar vehicles. I barely passed my driving test. You will have help, the Chancellor said, but if you fail, this union will be nullified. I looked at Liara, who was clearly enjoying my suffering. Do you realize I'm going to crash and die? I can't even keep a goldfish alive, let alone a spaceship. She leaned closer, her emerald eyes glinting. Then you will simply have to surprise me again. Surprise you, I said. At this rate, the only surprise will be how fast I explode. But as the council dismissed us, I caught the faintest smile on Liara's face, a smile that said she knew I wouldn't back down, even if I had no idea what I was doing. The trial of unity was supposed to test my compatibility with the cosmos. In practice, that meant sitting in the cockpit of an alien ship that looked like someone had mashed together a jellyfish and a sports car, with no manual, no instructions, and Liara smiling like she just handed me the galaxy's most complicated board game. You'll do fine, she said, adjusting a control that looked suspiciously like a glowing sea urchin. The ship responds to emotion. Emotion, I repeated, horrified. My only emotion right now is pure, unfiltered panic. Are we sure that's the best pilot setting? She leaned over and pressed her forehead lightly against mine, her long ears glowing faintly. Then you must trust yourself. And trust me. It's hard to argue when someone like Liara says that, so I took a deep breath and gripped what I hoped was the steering mechanism. The ship purred to life, its panels lighting up in a swirl of colors that looked like mood rings having a party. Okay, I think I'm flying it, I said nervously. Wait, no, it's flying me, I'm just hanging on. The trial involved navigating through a field of rotating crystal shards, orbiting a small moon. The shards moved unpredictably, shimmering with energy like they were dancing just to spite me. Why can't your people have normal tests? I yelled as we dodged a shard by centimeters. Like a written exam or a talent show. Liara laughed. This is more fun. Fun is not the word I'd use. I shouted, trying to steer while the ship veered like a drunken space penguin. My heart raced, but somewhere in the chaos, I stopped panicking and started listening. The ship wasn't just reacting to me. It was almost like it was waiting for me to let go of fear. I focused on the stars, on Liara's steady gaze beside me, and somehow the ship responded, gliding with a sudden, impossible grace. We emerged from the crystal field untouched. The council watched through a live feed. I could practically hear their jaws dropping across the void. Liara leaned back, her smile softening. You did it. I did it, I repeated, stunned. And nothing exploded. I think I might actually cry. Back at the council chamber, the High Chancellor looked at me as if I'd sprouted a second head. Perhaps this human is not entirely unworthy. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me here, I said. Thank you, glowing space grandpa. The ambassador, who had been pacing like a nervous cat, nearly fainted when Liara announced her intentions again, this time with the full council's reluctant blessing. We will unite our worlds, she declared, her voice firm. Not because tradition demands it, but because it is time for change. The chamber erupted in murmurs, but no one dared challenge her. I looked at her in disbelief. Unite our worlds? That sounds big, very big, like bigger than my usual responsibilities, which involve not spilling coffee. You'll grow into it, she said with a grin. In the days that followed, the story of the earless suitor spread across the galaxy. Some called me a hero, others called me that lucky idiot. Both were accurate, but as Liara and I spent more time together navigating diplomatic dinners, dodging over-enthusiastic alien reporters, and laughing until our sides hurt, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't just the bumbling assistant anymore. I was something more, maybe even someone capable of being brave when it mattered. On our last night aboard the station, I found myself on the observation deck again, the stars sprawling endlessly before us. Liara stood beside me, her silver hair brushing my shoulder. Are you still afraid? She asked softly. Terrified, I admitted. But not of this, not of us. She smiled, and in that moment the stars felt closer, like they were leaning in to listen. Then we are ready. I took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin and the pulse of something bigger than both of us. For the record, I said, if I ever whisper something to the stars again, I'm going to be very careful. Last time, I ended up engaged to an alien princess. And yet, she said, leaning her head against mine, you do not regret it. Not even a little, I said. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was still as chaotic as ever, full of politics, strange plants and ships that responded to emotions.